computer. That sounds fun. Okay. I'm gonna hope that works. Okay, resume share. Can you guys see the MLS? Are you
Yeah, I
seeing?
can see it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when you go to do a CMA, the first thing you got to do is go in here and you're going to look at your functions. Your CMA is actually under My Matrix, and you go to My CMAs, and it should bring up any CMAs you have already done, and you go down here to say Start New CMA. It's helpful to me to select the contact name, so I'm going to put me, because this is my home. We're going to do my house and see how much it's worth. It'll be lots of fun. So then you put in the address, 804 137th Street Northeast, Bradenton, Florida 34212. You put the address. If you don't have your contact in already, you can create a new contact. So right here on your pages, make sure you put them in order. If you're creating a CMA for a seller, you want all the pages, including the static. If you're creating it for a buyer because the buyer really wants to know your opinion of value, you're not going to add the static. Your static is all the crap about list at the proper value, make sure your valuation is correct, this and that. Buyers doesn't care about that. So you're going to click cover, subject, comparables, static for a seller, and then a map. So it'll automatically add all of these pages and make it look like a big, beautiful CMA for you. The first thing you want to do is find your subject. The best way to find the subject is to do the cross property matrix, because that brings in any past listings. So I always check for that first. If your property was ever listed on the MLS in the past, you should be able to find it by doing the matrix search. If you are not able to find a property using the matrix search, then you're going to get it from the tax records. You don't ever want to put it in manually. It will take you forever and it's a pain in the tushy, okay? So cross property matrix, I'm going to go in here. I'm going to unclick active because I want records of any time this property was ever in the MLS. So all I do is I put in my street number and my street name. Sometimes you might want to put in like your zip code just to make sure you have the correct property and you don't have one from another county that might have the same street. So you can see for my property, there's 9 records. I happen to know which is the last one because I know what I paid for it. But if you don't get the proper last one, like, oh my gosh, I want to make sure I have the very last bit of info, you can click property history here and you can see which one's the last one. So when you go to bring up the last record, you're just going to click here and fill from selected. And when I do that, it fills from the last listing. There are things you want to remove that are specific to that listing. So you can see street number, street name, zip, Mill Creek, county. Those are all good. Bedrooms, bathrooms don't change. This, by the way, is not a pool. This is a hot tub. I don't know why they call it a pool. So I'm just going to notify that. Half acre lot. 3166. So you want to change the sold status, especially if you're preparing this for a seller. You want to remove your days on market, list price per square foot, close date, close price, just anything that has to do with the last sale. Listing ID, list price, original list price, sales price to list price ratio. You don't care about taxes in 2015. Everything else, sales price to list price, there you go. So basically, I've just got all the stuff that's specific to my house, and I just removed anything that had to do with the last listing. If this all looks good and there's nothing you want to add, just go ahead and proceed. If there's something you want to add, like you want to add the taxes for this year, you can add info in here. So the first thing you're going to create is your cover. Now I've worked on my agent information here. If you have not made yourself a pretty little picture with all your info, you need to click edit my information and have this pop up. That way you don't have a little blank page on your CMAs. It is good to have a subject cover photo. If you are bringing it from the very last listing, it should bring you the photo from the listing. If you are filling it from county records, I like pretty photos, so I actually go on Google Maps and I will screenshot a photo of the front of the home and include it here. And it's funny, when I go to listing presentations and I bring the CMA, I always have a picture of the front of their house, and they're like, how'd you get a picture of my house? I'm like, Google Maps. Anyway. All right, so comparables. Your comparables, this is where it gets interesting. You want to find the properties that are most like the property you are trying to price. In a community, it's super easy. You're just going to look for those listings that are in the community. So this is Mill Creek, so I specifically want Mill Creek. I'm going to be a little more specific with mine because I know there are 7 phases to Mill Creek, and I know phases 1 through 5 are the older, more preferable phases that everybody likes with the relaxed restrictions. And then you've got phases 6 and 7, which are the newer ones, which some people like because they're newer houses, but I don't, because they are a lot more strict over there. So those just tend to sell at different values. So I want my houses to be as close as possible to what I'm selling. If you don't have that kind of inside info, that's fine. I live here and I happen to know this. If you are trying to price a property, let's say from, Silver Lake, you're going to just use listings from Silver Lake. If you do not have enough from your community, you can go back a little further in time. Instead of 6 months, maybe 9 months. You can increase your square footage requirements. I'll show you how to mess with it a little. Okay. So always add from listings. You're not going to add comparables from tax. This took me a minute to figure out. Remove your address or you're not going to come up with anything. Okay. So active, pending, and sold. Try to go back 6 months. Active, pending, and sold. Some people put expired just to show what price doesn't get the house sold. I don't like to confuse the sellers, so I just do active, pending, and sold. I'm going to put Mill Creek, and just in case there's any Mill Creeks anywhere else, I'm going to put Manatee County. So you can see I've got 26 matches. That's way too much for a CMA. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go on my, we're valuing a property from Mill Creek. Welcome. So I'm going through how to find comparables. Sorry, I'm repeating myself because I just admitted someone. So I'm looking for active, pending, and sold properties in Manatee County, in my zip code, and in our neighborhood, Mill Creek. Right now I have 26. That's too many for a CMA. When you pull these up, you should see, you can click on this and see how many you get. And I can see that I have 1, 2, 3 active and a whole lot of sold. So that's too many sold. And you can see kind of here that I have land. So I kind of want to restrict it to only houses. So I'm going to back to criteria. I'm going to say I only want residential, single family. And if I want to go a little further, I'm going to see, I can add criteria down here. I don't know if that, have you guys messed with the additional fields yet? Down here?
Yeah, just to sort of play with exterior, interior features, but just to sort of play with it is all.
Yeah, it's very important. Some people never get told these fields are down here, and they're super, super important. One of the first things I did when I joined way back when is I added the field for financing, and I looked for people who were offering seller financing because we were at the bottom of the market and everybody was under foreclosure, and I was looking for things that the owner was willing to finance for special people who are getting foreclosed on. So there's little fields you can find down here. So one thing I'm going to look for down here is my house. I don't want to compare it to short sales and foreclosures. Okay. When you have a regular sale, comparing it to distressed houses isn't going to give you an appropriate number. And the same thing when I'm pricing an REO, I try to at least throw in there a couple REOs. So for now, for our purposes, I'm going to say not an auction, not a short sale, not bank owned. I just want regular sales, okay? So that should eliminate some. Then remember I told you that in my community that it's split into two sides. So I'm actually going to zoom in and find the side that I want. So here I am. This is Mill Creek. There's two sides. This is the old side. This is the new side. I want to compare mine to the old side. So there's here where I can draw a polygon, and I'm just going to say I only want this side of the road. I don't want the other side. So you can also do this when later I'm going to do one without an HOA, and you'll see how this is helpful. So right now I'm down to 16. I want a little bit less because I can look and see what I have. Remember I had 3 actives, and then now I have a whole bunch of solds. I would like my solds to be between 5 and 10, preferably between 5 and 8, gets you a good number. If you have a really weird wacky house, sometimes you can use more and get a better average, but you don't want to do that many numbers. So I'm going to zero in on also square footage. So I know mine is 3166 square feet. Darren, do you know how close in size comps should be when they're used by an appraiser?
I don't know how close they should be. I mean,
Okay, I just didn't know if someone threw that at you. It's 20% usually. And if you can't get 20%, I increase to 25. So I'll take my square footage, which is 3166, and I'm gonna multiply it by 80%. That means I get houses 20% smaller. So that puts me at 2532. I'm just gonna round it to 2,500 square feet. You just don't want to compare 1,200 square foot house to a 3,200 square foot house. That's not going to make any sense, and it's a different valuation. So then I'm going to take my 3166 and I'm going to multiply it by 1.2, make it 20% higher, which puts me at 3,799, which is right around 3,800. So basically, I'm trying to get houses that are closest in size to mine. Now you see that reduced me to only 6. So I'm going to see if I have 6 sold, because that to me is only 5 here. So I'd like a couple more. So I'm going to mess with it a little. I'm going to say, oh, I'm going to go just slightly outside of the range of 20%. So I'm just going to bump it by 100 until I get a number that I like. So I'm going to go 24 to 39. Now I have 8. See, I kind of like that. I'm like, okay, I have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 solds and 1 active, all on my side of Mill Creek. None of them are foreclosures or short sales. So now I'm comfortable with these. So I'm going to click here and put add selected, and these are going to be my comparables. If any of these comparables come out to be way out of whack when I adjust them, kind of like off the range, I can remove them. But for now, I'm going to add all of these. And then I'm going to check my map to make sure I'm all in the right spot. And you can kind of see where mine is. There's me, here's these others, and everybody's good. So next I'm going to go to my adjustments, because I'm going to adjust these to be more like mine. Okay. So if you remember, the only one I remember on my adjustments is CIA. Okay. And CIA stands for if the comparable is inferior, you add. So I'm going to adjust for anything the property is different, and I'll show you what I adjust. If the comparable, the one I'm comparing to it, is inferior, meaning mine is better, I'm going to add to the total. If the comparable is better, then I'm going to subtract. Okay. So first property that comes up is right here. And I do not adjust for both square footage and bedrooms unless I'm comparing a 2-bedroom to a 3 or a 4. The reason behind that is obviously a 3,200 square foot house over a 2,900 square foot house is already going to have an extra bedroom. Usually you have more square footage, you have more bedrooms, so you don't want to double adjust. But a 3-bedroom house always sells more than a 2-bedroom house, whereas a 4 and a 3 is not that much difference. So I'm not going to adjust for bedrooms here unless I come against a 2-bedroom comparable. Okay. The bathrooms I do adjust because bathrooms are important. People will pay more for 3 bathrooms than they will for a 2-bathroom. Okay. So leaving this, these are the same here. Now I made sure I put that my house only has an in-ground hot tub and the other house has an actual heated tub with a deck and whatever and a screen enclosure. So usually I will go and look at the prices in the neighborhood and just kind of make an estimate of what a house with a house with a pool sells for compared to a house that doesn't have a pool. Some neighborhoods, like cheaper neighborhoods and smaller houses, a pool house and a non-pool house may have only a $20,000 difference. You also have to take into account, is this a 1960s pool, 1970s pool, or is it a newer pool? Okay. So I happen to know that in my community, you usually have about 25 to 30,000 more for a pool house than you do for a non-pool house. If you don't know that, if you're not familiar with the community, you just have to look at sales and just kind of guess. Usually you're going to be somewhere between 20 and 35 in most areas, depending on whether we're talking about $1 million houses or $200,000 houses. Okay. So I'm going to say my hot tub is probably got a value of, I don't know, 5,000. Can you build an in-ground hot tub for 5,000? No, but this is an older one. That's about its value. And a screened caged pool, I'm going to say is like 25 to 30. So the difference is 20 to 25. You just kind of pick the number that works best for you. I'm going to say 25. So they have an actual pool with a cage, whereas I just have a little hot tub, no cage, it's just sitting out there. So I'm going to say, remember, they're not inferior, so I don't add, I subtract. So if this makes sense, they sold for $489. If they had a hot tub only and not pool, they would have sold for $464. Does that make sense? Okay. So the next part, sometimes I adjust for the land size, especially here. And the way I figure this out, let me know if my screen follows when I do this. Can you see when I type Manatee County property appraiser?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to go to the property appraiser, and this kind of gives me just a rough estimate of land value. Okay, so I'm going to do a property search. Come on. And I'm going to go 804 137th, or I could have just done my name, and I'm doing a search. And there's my little property. There's me, yay. I can pull my trim, which is my tax valuation, and it gives me just a rough estimate of the taxable value of my land. Okay, where is my tax stuff? All right. Yes, I know. Did they break it down to land and stuff? Okay, well, there's the tax values. I'm trying to find the part that's just for my land. I've done this before. There it goes. I'm sorry. Okay, so 2020, you can see land value, home value, total value. So they're saying a half acre of land is 50,000. So basically a full acre of land is going to be 100,000. So there's a couple ways to do this, but basically I like to say, okay, if a full acre is 100,000, then I do fractions thereof and I adjust. So if I'm here and my difference is 0.2, the difference between 0.7 acres and 0.5 acres is 0.2, then I take my 100,000 times 0.2 and I can say the difference here is 20,000 on the land. okay? Remember, we're not inferior, we don't add, we're gonna subtract. So they have bigger land, I'm subtracting 20,000. They have a pool, I'm subtracting 25. Next, I'm going to do my square footage. So I've got 3166. I'm going to subtract 2960. The difference is 206 square feet. How do I know what to adjust for the square footage? Anyone? Jason, do you remember this? Do you have your mute off?
No, I'm trying to remember. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Well,
So-
I do see on the listings where it says like, you know, how much they sell per square foot. Do you use a number like that?
Kind of, yes, yes, correct. So you're going to adjust kind of sort of what they sell for per square foot divided by 2. And people have questioned me on this, why you divide by 2, but this is how it works. This is how appraisers have told me. So basically the explanation I got is when you add square footage to a house, you're not adding the most important things that cost you. So you're not going to add the full price per square foot. If you have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that's 2,000 square feet, then you have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that's 3,000 square feet. You're not adding an extra kitchen. You're not adding an extra roof. You're not adding extra foundation. You're not adding extra bathrooms. You're basically adding drywall and square footage. So most houses are adjusted between, I would say, 30 to 80 per square foot. The cheapest houses, like the really bad ones or trailers or whatever, might sell for 60 to 80 per square foot, and you're going to adjust half of that. And the most expensive houses, the really nice ones, are going to adjust like over 200 a square foot. And the most I like to do is about 80 because, again, you're just adding drywall. Okay. Remember, I'm already adjusting up here for bathrooms, and you're never going to add an extra kitchen. You're never going to add an extra roof. So really, it's just drywall. So your adjustments should be somewhere between 30 and 80. And that should be right about half of what things sell for in that neighborhood on the average. So I'm going to say Mill Creek is pretty high on the price per square foot. Most everything here sells for a good 150 to 200 a square foot. So on the lower end, I'd say 150. So half of that is about 70. So I'm going to pick my number to be 70. That has worked good for me here. You can use whatever number you're comfortable with for the neighborhood you're working with. I'll do another CMA with a little less explanation in a minute that is a little bit lower area. Okay, so remember my difference was 206 square feet. I'm going to say $70 a square foot. So I'm going to adjust 14,420. Am I going to add or subtract the 14,420?
Add.
Add, because my comparable is inferior. My house is bigger. So 14.
Did you tell them the acronyms already?
What's that?
Did you already tell them the acronyms?
CIA, comparable is inferior, you add. What was the other one?
CBS, or no? If the comparable is better, you subtract. Yeah, it is CBS.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like the other one. I just remember CIA and I remember to do the opposite. Okay. If there is 10 years or more difference in the year built, I will adjust for that. These are too close. I'm not going to mess with it. If I was comparing a 1990 to a 2000, for a more expensive house like this in the $500,000 range, I'm going to add a 1,000 per year. If it was like a crappier house, like a $200,000 house, I'm going to add 500 per year. Okay. And that kind of helps you when you're adjusting between 1950s homes and 1990s homes, because you've got to add something for that. Okay. So basically I adjusted this comparable, and according to this one, it's an active. Basically, it compares to my house at the 459. My crazy Zillow people are closer to 500, and it's not going to be always perfect, but that's where I'm going with this. And this is only going to give you a range, and you'll see why. Okay. So right here, my next comp, same beds, same baths, little hot tub. I'm going to give 5,000 for that. The 0.61, this number is easy because I said about 1,000 for each point. So I can just say 11,000 here. And remember this, I'm going to subtract because they're actually bigger. 3166, 3209 is so freaking close. I mean, if I want to do it, it's literally 43 square feet times 70 is 3,010. Comparable 3,010, 3,010. There we go. All right. And this is close, so we're fine. See, this one came out closer to 500, and that's a sold. Sometimes your actives, the reason they're sitting on the market. Okay, so here I have a half bath difference. To keep it straight, I'm gonna say full baths. Inferior, I'm gonna add 10,000, but then here I'm gonna subtract 5 for the half bath. I always do 10,000 for a full bath, 5 for a half. That's just how I've done it. Sometimes if I'm not in a community that requires garages, I'll adjust for garages too, and I'll show that later. Okay, so remember hot tub, pool, I said the difference was like 25. Subtract 25,000 here. Okay, this is 0.55 difference, so I'm going to subtract because this is like double the size of the lot. Okay, now I've got 3166 minus 2652. The difference is 514 square feet multiplied by 70. So I'm going to add 35,980. Here, remember I said 1,000 per year, so 2003, not 2033, we're not there yet. 2003 minus 1987, that's 16 years newer, so I'm going to add 16,000. All right. And that's my comp right there. Then number 8. All right, make sure we do all your comps. Sometimes this thing jumps around a little bit. I'm going to go back to comp number 6. Okay, 0.92. So that is 0.42 difference. And subtract. No, subtract. Okay, here we go. Remember, this one's got something extra, we add. This one's got something less, we subtract. 3166 minus 2672 times 70, 34,580. Now add 34,580. And this is exactly 10 years, 10,000. So you can see that most of them are kind of floating around that 500 number, a little higher, a little lower by like 50 or so. Your average should always work out. Same, all right, so next one, we're kind of going backwards here. Let me go back to number 1, so we're going in the right direction. Okay, comparable 1, here we are. That one's been adjusted. Comparable 2, here we are. Take away for the pool. Take away for the larger lot. Now this one's a lot smaller, so I've got 761 feet difference, which puts me at 53,270. All right, next. Pool again, 25. Larger lot, 16,000. Then I just do my size. The difference in square feet is 409 times 70. I'm going to add 28,630. I don't adjust for the year unless we're 10 years apart. Okay. Minus 25 for the pool. Minus 34 for the bigger lot. 3166. Minus 2497 is 669 times 70. I'm going to add 46,830. This one came out a little lower, so later we can kind of check to see why. Sometimes you can throw out your outlier. Sometimes it's just because it's totally not updated and it literally has like all separate rooms and the layout is terrible.
That one has 2 bathrooms.
Oh, did I? Okay, all right, you're good. I like that. You caught it. So 10,000. There you go. That helps a little because I'm like, that's way low. Yeah, I think I saw that one. I think that one just had a really bad layout or something. I couldn't remember what it was. Okay, so I just make sure I adjust them all. Here's one more. All these pools are sometimes killing us. If you find your numbers coming in too low and you're like, maybe I shouldn't adjust 25 for the pools, you can go back and adjust 20. It's fine. You can change them all. So this one's got a way bigger lot. Looks like I'm at 63,000. Okay, for the lot. Then I've got 3166 minus 2762. It gets kind of a little tedious after a while with these numbers, but it's very important. So 28,280. And here I'm like 9 years. I'll leave it be, but I usually will adjust for 10 years or less. Okay, and I already did this one. And did this one. So they're all pretty much done. We kind of checked them. So when you go to your pricing, it's going to give you a median adjusted, an average adjusted, a low, and a high. Okay. So what I'm going to do is in my notes, I always put median adjusted sales price of 465,975 and average adjusted sales price of 465,735. Suggest a sales price in this range for the average home of this size in this community. Okay. These numbers are a little low. I know I'm supposed to be at 500, but it could be my comps are inferior, whatever. So then I'm going to note range of 397, 830 to 537, 580, because I got to note that my range. So, and over here for my suggested list price, if I have seen the house and I know what the house looks like compared to the other ones, I can do my suggestion up here based on the information on my notes. If I'm meeting with someone for a listing presentation, I will usually make them go through all the photos with me. So I will pull up my comps and I will show them the photos and say, these are the 8 houses in your community that I've sold. Look at the price they sold for. How do they compare to yours? Is yours better than that? Or is yours average? Should you be at the high end of the range? Should you be at the low end of the range? And this forces the client to be honest. If they see houses that are all granite and quartz and their house is like pink bathrooms and shag carpet, they're going to have to say, I'm at the low end. Okay. So I can go up here and I can say, this home has an upgraded kitchen and new flooring and redesigned floor plan and compared to other sold in this community should be in the upper range near 500,000. And then I would look at the photos. Any questions? So this would be like a CMA that you would do if you're trying to figure out the pricing for a property that you're getting ready to list, and you look at all the other houses, you're going to find your average, but your average isn't always going to be your suggested list price, especially if your property is closer to the high end of the range. If they have quartz and new floors and all the walls have been taken down, the house has been opened up. Now, if you have a house that, like I said, has pink bathrooms and shag carpet, you're going to tell them they need to be closer to this and not 465. Okay, so I'm going to, by the way, when you go to send this, you click finish and save. There are two ways to send this, and I used to just say email CMA, which somehow tends to be in spam sometimes when you email the CMA, because you're sending a lot of photos and a lot of information. So I do it two ways. I will email the CMA. I will also click view CMA, which creates a PDF. And once you've created your PDF and it generates, once it generates, then I'm going to email it on a separate email. I'm going to actually go into my Gmail and address it to the person and attach it. I will never send a CMA prior to a listing appointment, because some people just want their price and they're just going to use you for that. You want the ability to go and sell yourself. So if you sent your CMA, you've already given them too much info and they're not going to know how to interpret it. You need to go through the photos with them. Okay. And the way I do that, I'm just going to save this to my desktop. Sorry. Yes, ding. Okay, I'll save you later. All right. The way I usually do that is I will literally go into my comparables here and I'll pull them one at a time, and I will just sit here and look at them and see, okay, look at this property, this adjusted to such and such. What's the difference? First of all, this property, I happen to know, has a really wacky layout, like a really wacky layout with the kitchen in a completely separate room all by itself, like you're in jail. So I explained that to the people, like that would be the reason this one would sell for less. And then I could look at the upgrades, etc. And then I would go next and I go through that with them one at a time. This is one of your other comparables. Look at compared to this house. How do you feel yours compares? They have carpet in the living room. Yuck. That's 10 grand right there, because your people got to redo the flooring, you know. And then you just go through it. These look like, you know, 1990s wood cabinets, just something you want to note. And you just go through when you look at everything. Do you think this house needs upgrades? Do you think it's comparable? They still have the old Korean countertop looking things. How does your look? You know, and you just compare it in the photos. You can make note that, oh, they have plantation shutters. And then you just say, is this inferior to yours? Is it kind of like yours? Is it better than yours? How would you adjust the price on this one? And you just go through with them one at a time and see, like, that's wacky. How do you think that'll affect the pricing? And you just go through. And you would think that the two-tone stuff would work, and some people just don't like that. And the weird different floors. When you see 5 different floorings, people don't like that. So I always make notes when adjusting for value. Okay. All right. I'm going to click out of this one And we're going to do one that is one of my investor properties. I wanted to show you one real quick that is not in a community because that's a little bit harder to find comparables for. And go in my notes and get the address. 1909 25th Ave West. So before I even start it, I usually check to see if it's ever been on the MLS. So I'm going to go 1909 25th Avenue West. I know this is in Bradenton. Okay, yeah, it's Bradenton. Okay. 1909 25th Avenue West. All right, here we go. All right, so I can see that it has been listed once. It just gives me an idea so that I can find it. So then I'm going to go back to my matrix, my CMAs, and I'm going to add a new CMA. Start. Okay. This property belongs to one of our lovely friends right there. So I'm going to put his name there. And then I'm going to put 1909 25th Ave. And I'm actually going to give this comp to Jason's buddy, Tom Popes, because that's one of his favorite friends, isn't it, Jason? Jason? All right. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
I hear you.
Okay, good. Just checking. Sorry, Jason must be muted. Okay, I was joking because that's one of my investors and he doesn't like them too much. Okay, so remember, this is for a seller, so I'm going to add all of the static and everything. If I was doing this for a buyer, I wouldn't add the static. So cover, subject, comps, static, map, everything there. Then I'm going to find my subject by going into the cross property. If I wasn't in the cross property, let's say I wanted to add from the realist tax record, let's say I didn't find it. Let me show you the easiest way. You can go into the Manatee County Property Appraiser and get that property ID number. If you go in here, like for all properties, you can see the parcel ID number and that'll help you find it. Or you can put the owner's name and such. When you do the address, it doesn't always work out because there's so many variations to the address, etc. So I'm going to pull up my property, 1909 25th Avenue, and see how it pre-populates. It's kind of cool. And it just gives you an idea and you can pull it up. It's very important that you check this for a listing before you do anything, because I will often have a listing for a property that's supposed to be a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And when I go into here, I find a 2-1. So then you got to discuss, okay, is your property valued at what the county says you have? Or do you need to go call the county and have them fix their record? And trust me, if it says you're a 2-1 and you actually have a 3-2, the county will be more than happy to update that you have more bedrooms and baths and charge you extra. And that'll help you out with your listing, because that way people will not freak out and think you have an illegal bedroom and bath. Okay. So that's a little tip there. So when you go to add it, you can go to Sarasota, you can put in your tax ID number, you can put
Susanna,
yes.
Real quick there, when you just went over that, because that was a question I was going to ask you a little bit later. When you have an issue like that, we did that all the time up in the Northwest where the houses were, 100 years old and things had been added and nobody had changed them. If you just contact the Manatee tax or county there, they'll do it. Do they charge you to make those changes if necessary, or do they're happy to do them to increase taxes?
They're happy to do them. So I usually only do this when people are selling the home. If the people are not selling the home, why would you want to call up county and ask them to charge you extra taxes?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
But if you're
we ran into that.
Yeah.
Where when we went to sell the house, it was listed at some ridiculous square footage and that kind of thing. So
Right. So most of the time they will do it just by over the phone. Sometimes they want to come out and check and make sure you're not lying. In most situations, I've called them up. I had one where I was listing a property that had 5 bedrooms and 3.5 baths, and county still had it as a 3-2. And the sellers clearly had permits for an addition, and they clearly had permits that said add half bath, convert family room to bedroom, whatever. But the property bedroom and bathroom count had not been updated. So your property appraisers, the appraisers that come out when you sell your home, don't want to work that hard. And so sometimes when they see a 3-2 on record, they're going to compare you to 3-2s, or they're just only going to give you credit for 3-2. So if you want credit for all the square footage that's there and all the bedrooms and baths that are there, when I go to do a listing, the moment I'm doing their CMA, if I find a discrepancy at my listing appointment, I inform the sellers that they need to call the property appraiser and have their records corrected in order to get maximum value and to prevent problems. Because if that appraiser comes in and sees that you have 3 bathrooms and the records say you have 1, sometimes they will ask you to prove that those other bathrooms are legitimate and not put there by the last owner's drunk Uncle Joe on a rough weekend, you know. So yeah, I usually have them update that stuff if necessary. Only once did they want to come out and see it. I just had one appraiser that wanted to see, and they came out and actually measured the square footage and updated it properly. I just sold one in Meadowcroft where there was an enclosed lanai, and it added an additional 200 square feet of space, 260 square feet. And we were 10,000 shy on our appraisal because that wasn't there. And I did tell the seller to call the county and add the additional 260 square feet, and they just never did it, and they should have. So, because the appraiser went by 1,260 square feet, which is the county records say, but really there was 1,500 there. Okay. So prevent problems, we add them. Okay, so here we go. We're going to find our subject. I was just showing you how to add from the tax record form, because in the beginning I used to click this and I would literally sit here and put street number and everything, and it would never come up right. So I just learned to either go by the owner's last and first name or the tax ID number. It's not necessary here. I do have a cross property. So remember, uncheck active. And then I'm going to put in only the numbers, because if you start going with avenues west and east, it gets confused. So 1809 and then 25th Avenue West. And let's find the one in Bradenton. All right. Here we go. Sold. For some reason, I'm getting different ones than I got a minute ago. Let me see if this is the same house. You can always check. That does not look like the same house. All right, let me try this again. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to say, I am looking for the subject and criteria. I'm trying to find anything at 18. Oh, I know why, because I'm at 1909. Okay, that's much better. Okay. Like, why am I not getting the right house? All right, 1909 25th. Here we are. Perfect. So I'm going to fill from this one. And that looks just like my little house. 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths. Okay, I'm going to remove my remarks. Okay, I'm going to remove anything that has to do with the past sale, like the sold status, list price per square foot, close date, closed price, days on market, listing ID, list price, original list price, sales price ratio, the fact that it was a foreclosure, the tax for 2018 is irrelevant, and sales price per square foot, days to close, and days on contract. So I'm only going to keep what's actually relevant to me. Here's my cover. I have have my picture. If I really wanted, I could fill in Tom's lovely address. I'm not going to. And I'm going to find comparables. So when I'm looking for something that's not in the property and in a HOA or in a community, I'm going to actually look it up on maps, see where I am, and try to get some borders of where I want my comparables to be. So I'm going to look up 1909 25th Ave West, Bradenton. And I'm going to use my map to help me. So you can see my little property here. You can take a look at the photo. Lovely little thing this is. There's a cool little garage back there. This guy bought this as a foreclosure and rehab that he's going to be selling it, and he's going to ask me for a value. So I thought I would work on this. All right. So now that I found where it is, I can see that my borders, this is 14th Street West. This right here is 26th Street West, and this is 26 right here. If anybody knows Bradenton well, you know that there's certain areas that have similar values. So I'm going to start with the immediate area around it. If I don't get enough comps, I can expand a little further, because I don't have a neighborhood I can put in. I can't just say I want Mill Creek. So I'm going to kind of draw a little area of comps around it. I'm also going to check to see my square footage to make sure I'm using the proper square footage for my comps. It says 1135. And remember, this has a cool little garage, so I may want to add that into my comparisons. So I'm going to add from listings. I want to make sure I'm only getting residential homes that are single family and not condos or anything else. Because this is not in an HOA, I don't want anything to pop in there that is like a nearby community, because that's different than something not in an HOA. So under my additional fields, I'm going to say HOA not required. I'm going to remove my property, otherwise I'm going to get nothing but this property. This one's year built is relevant here because it's an older home. So I'm going to see what my year built is. Come on, you can do it. Sometimes it's best to use your property card, which kind of gives you like a little summary. And by the way, for those of you who have never done this, the property card will also give you permits, which is really, really important when pricing a property. You want to know your age of roof and everything. So when I pull up the property card, all I did is I went to the property appraiser, found my property, and clicked right here for property card. It gives me like a little summary, and it makes it easier for me to see the age of the property, what all I have there, my square footage, my units. I'm going to see if there's any additional units. I'm going to look at my land. I can see my land size. I can see my sales info. And down here, residential dwelling, it's counting 2 bedrooms and 2 baths. By the way, there's only 1 bath in that house. That's a weird thing, but this one I happen to know only has 1, even though it says it has 2. See this 1964? It also gives you an effective year, meaning it's remodeled to be in the same shape as a 1991 house. That's kind of important. So I know this is 1964, so I don't like to compare 1964 homes to 1990, 2000 homes. So when they're older than like that, if I can, I keep my comps at 78 or older. So I'm looking at older lead-based paint possible homes with older homes. If I don't get what I want, I can bump it up to 1980, whatever, 1990, it doesn't matter. But I just try to keep that close if I can. So knowing my information here, oh, by the way, here's my permit. This is kind of interesting. They have permit to enclose the carport and create a family room, which they never did, but it was closed out. You can see that they installed a new electrical meter for the detached garage. You can see that it was re-roofed in 2004, which makes the roof 17 years old. That's important. And you can see that they built a 20 by 30 screen room on a consisting slab and footer, which I think was later turned into a garage, which is interesting. Okay, so with my info, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna pick my best comps. So I'm going to put, my square foot is 1,100-ish, give or take. So I want 20% less or more. I'm not like exact on these, so I just kind of rounded right around maybe 900 square feet to about 1320 is what I've come up with. We don't have a lot of small houses. I'll do 14. Okay. So I just want those that are closer to this 1,100 square foot house. I don't want 3,000 square feet houses I'm going to compare it to because that never works out right. Okay. So far, I'm going to go into my map and I'm going to create that little map around this area. So I'm not getting the entire state of Florida. I'm going to zoom in on my area. Come on, zoom. And remember, I was near Tamiami, 26th, and like 19th, which is kind of between 17th and here. So I'm going to draw a polygon and just see how many I get. If I don't get the correct number, I can always adjust. Okay. So doing this, active, pending, sold. If you get a wacky number, you're like, what'd I do wrong? Okay, so there you go. Active, pending, sold, residential, single family. And remember my year built, I'm going to say 1980 or older. Minus means older. I have 16 comps. Let me see what I'm looking at. I'm going to probably remove my foreclosures and short sales. And maybe that'll help me get the right number. Criteria under here. Sales permission. No auctions, no REOs, no short sales. I'm still at 16. It's a little bit too much for me, so I'm going to take it down on the square footage a little bit just to see. All right, 50 on each side. Still have 15, so I'm looking to see if I have mostly actives or sold. Okay, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 solds. And I have 3 pending and 3 active. 9 solds is fine with me. I'll keep them. If I have any weird ones, I'll get rid of them and toss them out anyways. So I'm going to add selected. Here we go. There's my comps. I'm going to look at my map to see, make sure they're all nearby. It'll give you a little blue property. All of these are nearby you. Looks fine. Okay. Adjustments. So I don't want to take you through all the thousands of tedious adjustments on this one. I'll do mine and you can play with it later. But you adjust for your square feet, for the number of rooms. You're going to adjust for the lot size if it's relevant. You can kind of see as I go through this, because I don't want to take you through another 15 properties adjusted, like the square footage is close, the year is 10 years. So you can see what you're just going to adjust here for. And once you adjust each one, you're going to go into your pricing and it's going to give you an average. Once you do your adjustments, it's going to give you a little average and median with a range, and then you're going to look at your photos to see where you are in the range. One thing I wanted to show you is how to add. Let's say you want to add for a garage. Let's say you want to add for something special on your property. If I wanted to add an extra criteria custom field on my search, this is where you do it. You can actually tie it to a matrix field if you want and have it pre-filled. So if I want to find something here where I say link to matrix field and I want it to a garage, yes or no. And I'm gonna hit, see, this is gonna say, yes, we have a garage. So if something does not have a garage, this will automatically adjust for you. If I wanted to create the field and look for it myself, then I'm not gonna link it to the field. I'm going to label it. This is where I do, let's say the property is waterfront. And I want to add 50 to 100,000 because it's gonna sell more than a non-waterfront property. I would label it waterfront and put yes. And then you would have to check each and every individual property and say yes or no and put it in, because you can't just rely on a field for that, because sometimes people just say waterfront and then it'll be like on a pond or something. So if it's something special, if you want to add like super tall ceilings, if you want to add like outdoor kitchen and you just want to check each listing and adjust, this is where you can put that. But if you just want to tie it to a field garage, yes or no, when you go to do your adjustments, it'll actually add that field on the bottom, and then you can just do a special adjustment and add a little bit here for the garage. Any questions? Okay, so that's basically all my lessons on a CMA. I just wanted to show you how it's done. The one in the community is easier. The one that's not in the community, you just have to mess with, do your area around it, and mess with your fields until you get somewhere between 5 to 10 sold comps. Okay? Thank you, everyone. Let me know if you have any questions later, okay?
Well, I was trying to get myself off mute there. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
I kept muting myself as I was trying to unmute myself. But anyways, one of the things I was going to ask is it better when you do have a big range, like on the first one, the range was from the high 300s to low 500s. Is it better to just go ahead and get rid of the outliers, or do you still want to keep those in there? You know what I mean? Like if one of them after your adjustments ends up being what you think is 80 or 90,000 less than what it should be, do you get rid of that, or should you leave it in for the numbers, for the averages?
If all of my comps are coming in right around 500 and then I have one that comes in at 380 and it's an outlier, I usually will toss it. I can just literally go in here and go to comparables and click it and say remove selected. Okay.
Okay.
So, and that'll change your average. And I do that a lot. Like if you're looking at all of these right here, well, you have to wait till they adjust, but mostly I look at like the price per square foot, and I can see like, okay, if everything else is selling at like 200 a square foot and you have a property selling at 80 a square foot, obviously there's something going on with that property. So I remove that. Okay.
Okay.
So
all right.
Sometimes I don't know which one's the outlier until you adjust, because you could have a property that's 200,000 off mark, but then you have 150,000 in adjustments.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that makes sense. Most of the little classes that I've seen, they've only used like 3 or 4. And I was thinking on the 3 to 4, boy, there could be a big difference when you actually walk into someone's house and you see what kind of tile they have, what kind of countertops they have, what kind of cabinets they have. You know, especially in the average priced house, if the average house is about 350 or 300, there's a big difference between, you know, those kind of things. So I was surprised that you use as many as you do.
Yeah, the appraisers only use 3, and it gives you a large margin for error. Like I could pick 3 comps and I could pick 3 completely different comps,
right,
and influence my number any way I want. Can you make a CMA point to whatever number you want? Sure you can. Okay. So I don't usually eliminate anything just because I'm going to pick these three, because that leaves more room for, let's say you really like a house, you're going to try to get it higher. You know what I'm saying? So I usually include everything in a certain neighborhood, everything in a certain area, and I just adjust my criteria to where it's closest in resemblance to the subject. But I don't try to nitpick different properties, because that gives you too much of a room for error, hence the errorous appraisers we get sometimes, you know. So
Well, that was my last question was about the actual appraisers, because now I've talked to different people, and it seems to me that some appraisers just kind of drive by, and then some appraisers want to walk through the house. So, you know, if you're relying on an accurate appraisal, I mean, do we have, or, you know, like, should I use a particular appraisal? Am I allowed to, or is the bank or lender going to choose that, or the buyer? How does that part of it work?
when they go under contract, the appraisal must be ordered blindly and no one's allowed to talk to them. And it's the
Okay.
craziest thing in the world. But basically, your lender orders the appraisal and your buyer pays for it with a credit card, and it goes out into the internet. And the first available appraiser that's nearby that snatches it up gets that job. It's like the appraisal order goes out, and every appraiser that's nearby and available has the chance to pick it up. Whoever gets it first gets it. And then you're not really supposed to talk to them. They will call you to schedule access. So do you have an opportunity to speak to them? Yeah, but you're not really supposed to influence them. So you're going to get what you're going to get. I do a lot of homework on my property. So I make sure when I offer for something, I offer nothing ridiculous to where I think it's going to appraise. Okay. Most of my properties appraise properly. I think I've had maybe one or two out of like 50 to 80 houses that I've had an issue with. Are there appraisers that make mistakes? Yes. Though, like one of them literally used the wrong community. Like the one in Meadowcroft, even though our square footage was off a little, he completely used 3 comps from Meadowcroft North, and we were in Meadowcroft South, which is a completely different community. So do people
Right.
make mistakes? Yes. Trying to get an appraiser to change their appraisal is a whole nother thing. I think you're like much more successful getting Jesus to bring you a miracle than trying to get an appraiser to adjust their appraisal. They always know everything, and if you tell them they're wrong, they're insulted. So usually I send them 3 comparables that I think are better than the ones they've used, and I explain why. And if you explain to them, hey, these 3 comps, good job picking them, but here's 3 that are better. Can you please use these and see where you come up with? If you're kind about it, they're more likely to change it.
And that's after my niece bought a house last year, and that happened on theirs, where they had all the deal was done, and then the appraiser ended up like 15 grand less. And that was one that we don't even think that they walked through the house, because it was a cute little house with a lot of little additional features. But so once that blind appraisal is made, you can say, hey, great job, but you know, why don't you look at these? You know,
Yeah.
you can do that afterwards.
You can. If an appraisal comes in low, you get one chance to dispute, and all they want is 3 comps that are better, and just explain why. So I usually would send a note. Yes, thank you for your appraisal, and we feel this home has a lot of upgrades and things not being accounted for. The comparables you're using are basically basic with shag carpet and pink bathrooms. How about these 3 comps that actually have granite and wood floors just like ours? And you just send it.
Okay.
And
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great information.
yeah, sounds good.
Hey, where do you maybe you can post it or something? How do we get this recording? Because I didn't want to try to do it while you were doing the Zoom.
I asked it to record and I'm gonna click stop recording and I don't even know where it's gonna save. It's supposed to save on my desktop. So if it works the way it's supposed to, I will send it to you all, okay?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Y'all have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.